Good afternoon. My name is Vera Richardson. I am making this video after I saw the news about President Biden actively engaging in trying to get the getting the athlete out of a Russian prison. And I feel for her, and I hope that she gets out. I don't have any issues with her, getting her freedom back. I don't have any position on was it a political or was it a legal arrest at the airport. My first concern and first thoughts were, if he can do that, as complicated as it is, and in the environment that we're in, where Putin engaged in a war, and the strain between relationships between Russia and President Biden at this time, if he can do that, I pray, hope that he will take this opportunity to give me peace and justice so that I can stop reliving the same thing over and over and over again for 25 years of feeling that they took my job, they took my mental health, they took my financial health, and everything in retaliation. When I started working for the Department of Correctional Services in 1986, I came in as an officer. I needed 18 semester hours to complete my coursework at SUNY Brockport for a BS degree. And I requested leave to, 6 months leave to complete my degree, and they denied it. So after they denied my request, I switched to the midnight shift, and I worked 40 hours a week, 11 to 7, and I had 18 semester hours at SUNY Brockport and during the daytime. And I graduated. After that semester, I made the dean's list, I think for the first time in my college career, with a 3.5 grade point average. And I graduated with a degree in political science and a minor in criminal justice. After I graduated, I took a promotion exam, and I became a supervisor. I passed that exam. I took 2 different ones. I passed them both. But this particular one was the supervisor inmate grievance position. And I passed that exam, and I was hired for that position at the same facility, Albion Correctional Facility, which is a upstate New York prison in New York for females outside of Rochester, New York. And I worked that position for 2.5 years. And after I was going through a divorce, after 18 years of being married to my husband, who also was employed by New York State Department of Correctional Services, and he eventually retired after positions as a correctional officer, several professional positions, including deputy superintendent of programs and superintendents of a couple of prisons in New York State. After my divorce, I left the inmate grievance program position to go back to an officer position. I was making $31,000 in the professional position, and when I went back to the officer position, I made $58,000 that first year working overtime. And after I returned to that position, I was under supervision of security staff, as opposed to my direct supervisor was deputy of programs, and I reported, he signed my evaluations, but my direct interactions were with the superintendent herself, because in the position, I was responsible for making sure that the facility followed the guidelines of correctional law. And that position was created after the Attica riots. And it was created so that a facility could know what was going on inside a prison and to address those concerns before they became riot situations or worse. And one of the cases, and I'm kind of going off topic, but this will just give you an understanding. So you will see that I had a valid case and a valid concern. So one of those cases that came to me was a case where an inmate said that the deputy of security, a male, was getting naked videotapes of the female inmates after they were keep locked. And keep locked means that an inmate is locked up for 24 hours a day in a cell or a room, and she's allowed out to exercise an hour a day. And before any inmate at Albion, and I believe it was at all correctional facilities, before they were keep locked, they would be videotaped to make sure they didn't have any injuries or their condition before they were locked up. And I guess it became knowledge to this particular inmate that the tapes, and so female officers would be the ones who would strip frisk them and videotape them. But this female inmate, made me aware that the deputy superintendent of security, a white male, was getting those tapes. So when I investigated that, his response to the superintendent, who was his immediate supervisor, what she relayed to me was that he said he's not looking at them. He's not looking at the tapes. But since I was responsible to make sure that the facility followed the guidelines of correctional law, I told her that as a male, he couldn't be in possession of the tapes. And that was the ruling. That was the final ruling in that particular case. And I, of course, notified the inmate that he wouldn't be getting the tapes anymore. When I returned back to the correctional officer position after 2.5 years, I faced quite a bit of a hostile work environment, would be an understatement. One of the things that happened to me was that my badge was stolen in the visiting room in an area where only officers had the ability to enter. And that badge has never been replaced. And although I paid $25 for the replacement of the badge, I have a note saying that the $25 were received, but I wasn't given the badge back. It was never replaced. So I just want peace and justice. And it's not just for me. At Albion Correctional Facility and in many correctional facilities in New York State, discrimination and retaliation was rampant. It was so rampant until I was able to file my case, and I thought I had it here, but I'll do another video and I can show you how I was able to file. Oh, here it is. I do have it. I was able to file my case because when I went to the district court, pro se, but without an attorney, when I went to the district court and I said, do you all have any paperwork or anything that I could use to as a guideline to file the case? And I was told that if I knew of a case name, that they could pull that case for me. And this case was filed in 91. Case number is 91, so that was the year it was filed. And number is 847S. And it involved an Hispanic officer, Noah Gonzalez, versus New York State Department of Correctional Services, ETL. And in this case, he worked at a male facility, Wendy's correctional facility outside of Buffalo, New York. And they hung nooses. They did all type of things to him. And the department settled this case for $500,000. At the time when I filed my lawsuit, I was told by the Buffalo News, because I contacted them to try and get coverage for it. And they told me that New York State had lost a lot of cases and settled a lot of cases prior to my case. So it wasn't an isolated incident. And it was so bad at Albion until during the time when I was out, because they sent me to my psychiatrist after my badge was stolen. I lost it. I stayed up all night typing a single 7-page, single space document, because losing a badge in a facility, you can imagine how serious that was. But it wasn't lost. So I've never faced any disciplinary actions for it. It was never recovered. The badge was never returned. So while I was out after that incident, the psychiatrist I was seeing determined that I was suffering from work-related depression and anxiety. And before I could come back to work, the facility, actually, New York State Department of Correctional Services in Albany, decided to send me to one of their state-hired doctors, psychiatrists. And his conclusion was that I was suffering from work-related depression, and he didn't know if I would be able to return. His wording was that maybe if I could return to a different facility, or I'm not sure if he said different position, once the crisis was, ended, that would be. But he agreed with my doctor that I was suffering from work-related depression. And so after being out for approximately 6 months, can't remember exactly now, I came back to work. And my first day back, I didn't have a ID or a badge to get into the facility, so they had to let me in. And the first action was that a deputy of administration, Borberry, had me. I was sitting in personnel waiting, to see, because I had picked up my job that day was going to be working in the yard, and I had the radio, I had my equipment for the yard. I had gone to line up, and they told me to go to personnel. They wanted me in personnel instead of going to my position. And somebody came, I think, and picked up the equipment um, to relieve me, And I was thinking it was just temporarily until I just settle whatever they had to do in personnel, since it was my first day back. Well, I was sitting there, her talking about she's a Black female, talking about God and, just general stuff. A Sergeant Fasano, and an officer, C.O. Frost, who was the vice president of the local Council 82 union, came to the door and told me that they had been ordered to escort me out of prison. Officers are only escorted out of the prison if they had a relationship with the inmate, improper relationship with the inmate, committed a crime, was convicted of a crime, or were facing serious disciplinary actions. All I had done was came back after being out for 6 months with depression, work-related depression, and they escorted me down 2 flights of stairs and out the front door and put me out. And I relapsed. And I have never worked another day in that prison. Then they terminated me and said I couldn't do the job, not for psychological reasons, but physical reasons. And then when I applied for disability retirement, they said, no, you can do the job. And a party cannot take 2 different legal positions in 2 different proceedings and win both. When I filed my lawsuit in 1997, in 1998. I was put out of prison in 1997. I filed a lawsuit in 1997. I was put out of the prison in 1996. But during that time, their position was that I was fired because I could no longer do the position of a correctional officer. So I filed for disability retirement based on I had 3 work-related injuries as an officer. And one of those injuries included an act by an inmate. I was breaking up a fight on Christmas Eve. And the inmate was trying to get to the other inmate, and I was in the way. So I got hurt. I'm saying in the way, but I was trying to keep them apart. If that makes sense, it should. Okay. And and I appealed the denial of the disability retirement as far as it could go. And after I lost the lawsuit, that was the final appeal of my disability retirement. And the lawsuit, the judge decided that I was terminated because I could not, he agreed with the findings from the New York State hired doctor that I could not do the position, physically could not do the position of a correctional officer anymore. That's why I was terminated. And then when I appealed that ruling, as far as I could appeal it, after my lawsuit was dismissed. I appealed that to the appellate court, Second Circuit Court of Appeals in New York, who upheld the district court decision. And after getting the appeals, Second Circuit Court of Appeals decision, I decided that I was going to appeal it to the Supreme Court. So I had to, because you can imagine what a job that is, being a pro se person doing it yourself. You could also imagine how mentally that must have been to have to relive that over and over and over again, all of those instances. And typing, doing the research, typing the original complaint. I actually had to amend the original complaint because after I filed my lawsuit October 15, 1997, and I was terminated November the 3rd, 1998. So after I got terminated, I amended a complaint to include retaliatory termination. And so then after it was dismissed at the district court, I appealed it to the appeals court, the Second Circuit Court of Appeals. They upheld the district court ruling. And then when I decided to appeal it to the Supreme Court, I filed an extension request with Justice Ginsburg to give me additional time to file the writ with that court. And I cited her ruling, her concurrent opinion in Reeves versus Sanderson. And in that opinion, the plaintiff won their employment discrimination lawsuit. The Supreme Court heard it and they ruled in that plaintiff's favor. And she concurred, and she said in that concurrent statement that once a defendant lies about their reason for actions that they took against a plaintiff, that in essence, that the plaintiff is alleging that was discriminatory. Once they lie about the reason that they did their action, then that plaintiff, which in this case would be me, should survive summary judgment as a matter of law, because the defendant, the employer, knows why he took the actions that they took. And if they lie about it, a jury, not a judge, should decide that case. At the time, the Supreme Court was only taking approximately 98 cases out of the 10,000 that they were receiving, 10,000 that they were receiving each year. And my case was not one that they decided to hear. And I've been seeking justice and peace ever since, because Jesus told me that I would be victorious in this matter. I received that initially, that I would be victorious as a person, Vera would be victorious. And I held on to that for years and years. And then I realized that it wasn't, and it isn't just about me. It's about all victims, so many other victims of employment discrimination who've had their day but didn't have their day in court, who had their cases thrown out, or lawyers not take their cases because of frivolous, and in my case, perjured declarations. New York State Department of Correctional Services, Mike Russo, who was the Assistant Attorney General assigned to my case after Spitzer was elected, Elliot Spitzer was elected Attorney General from New York, filed every declaration he filed in my case contained lies, every single one. and he filed about 8 declarations. And not only did he file them, he faxed the declarations to the New York State Department of Correctional Services and civil service employees for them to sign those declarations. He lied in his own declarations, and he got others to line their declarations. And so I'm thinking that maybe all the governors that I've contacted in the past to make me whole, to give me entitled disability retirement, retroactive, and or the $3 million that I saw in my lawsuit. Maybe they think that I don't know, that it's too big, too many people involved, that I don't know. But for me, I know that so many other victims are out there. I also know and believe that my divine purpose is to shed light on employment discrimination, and for that light to reveal that the Civil Rights Act of 1964, Title VII, needs to be amended again so that one judge cannot have the absolute authority to dismiss those cases, or like President Obama did with Ledbetter. Congress passed, he amended the Civil Rights Act of 1964 again after she found out that she was making less money than people who worked, males that worked at doing the same job that she was doing. And even though she couldn't get any back money for it, the act was amended and it can be done. And that's what one of the things that President Biden said to me, and I say promise, because he was talking to me, he was responding to my question, that as president, he would amend the Civil Rights Act of 1964 and the Voting Rights Act of 1965 again. President Biden, you can do that. You can do it if and when, I'm going to say when, I'm going to claim it right now, Jesus. Claim it right now. When you tell Governor Hochul, New York State Governor Kathy Hochul, to make me whole with an executive order, and my testimony, because right now, Jesus, right now, this is a wallet that my son gave me for a Christmas gift, a birthday gift. I think it was Christmas. And I have $4 and some change. And I will get, it's $1, maybe this is about $1.40 or so. So like $5.40. I will get my retirement check from New York State, which I was hired December of '86, and they terminated me in November of '98. Yet somehow they figured that my employment was only for less than 10 years. So I get $337 a month. And that check will be coming tomorrow. I'll get that check. Instead of the entitled disability retirement. I don't even know how much it would have been, how much it is. but I know it's more than less than $350 a month. And I would, in America, we have to decide between two parties, Democrats and the Republicans. And even though the Democrats, as stated in the title of my book, screwed by former Attorney General, screwed by former Governor and Attorney General Eliot Spitzer, was a Democrat, there's no way I would vote for a Republican, any Republican, because although no one is perfect because we're on earth, we're not in heaven, we still have to vote in every election and vote for the most qualified and or the person who is able to win a national election. And I hope that African Americans vote in record numbers, regardless of if I'm made whole or not. I worked on campaigns. I fought to stay on campaigns because in Hillary Clinton's case, she fought President Obama so hard. She taught the Republicans how to treat him. Just say no. She did not. She thought that, in my opinion, that it was her time. She was entitled to be the president. And I was blogging for yourblightworld.com, and I'm going to post the link for that in the description to that blog that I wrote about her. I was a political blogger. I blogged on politics, love, and religion for his site. And I blogged with Melissa Harris Perry and Lamont Hill. We were three of the bloggers, the original bloggers on that site. I believe the original, yeah. So that's it. But President Biden, please, you can amend the Civil Rights Act of 1964, Title VII. You said when you answered my question that you were sure, because I didn't tell the president and I didn't present what I presented to you all in this live to him when I asked my question. I told him the truth about my mother, who had a 7th grade education. She quit school because my grandfather wasn't a good husband to her mom, my grandmother. So she quit school to help with her 5 siblings in 7th grade. She was working on a tobacco farm with my grandmother, and she died at 58, but she had a lot of strength. She loved God, and she really believed, I don't know how she got to feel that she was equal, that no one was better than anyone else, that we're all equal. I don't know why she got that in her spirit, but it was in her spirit. And I know that's where I got it from. So she was on a tobacco farm, and I heard my grandmother tell my mom, she was working on a tobacco farm, that the owner, Mr. Carter, said that for my granny to tell her not to come back. She could not come back to his farm because she had mentioned that nigger, Dr. Martin Luther King's name, on his farm. And my mom couldn't get to work anywhere else in Quincy, Florida. And she left. She went to New York, Rochester, New York. She moved to stay with my aunt until she could get a place. And she got a job up there. So, and when I told President candidate Biden on January 22nd, 2020, in Iowa, that a little bit of that story, and he said that he was sure my mom was smiling down in heaven, that she was proud of me. And he said that as president, he would amend, both of those acts, Civil Rights Act of 1964 and the Voting Rights Act of 1965, when he was elected president. And you're now the president, President Biden. Yay! Oh, I'm claiming joy right now. I'm claiming victory right now. We got to get out the vote, and we can change this nation to be a more just nation for all its citizens. If I believe after all I've been through, I would spread the word, and because we still don't know, with January the 6th, we still don't know who's who in even our parties, and or if the Secret Service is compromised. What else is? So the only way, our only hope, is that we must vote in numbers like we did in the presidential election during this 22 midterm. So it would be too many for them to cheat. It would be hard for them to cheat. So use me. Help me, President Biden. Help the world. Help the nation. Help African Americans. Thank you very much. So end it.